Good morning. How are you all? I know it's very early, and I hope you all had a chance to get some coffee. My name is. We're here to. Nelson and I are here to talk to you about building lightning-fast communities at scale. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Frank Leahy. I'm a VP of Performance Engineering for the Community Cloud. That's me there biking up on Mount Tam. And that little tiny dot in the picture there is the Salesforce tower, far, far away.
And I'm Nelson Wong. I'm a software architect at Salesforce working on communities.
Can you guys hear us okay? Yeah? You're good? Okay, great.
Cool.
Good. So we're here to talk to you about two things, scale and performance. And just to start off with a definition. So scale is the ability to serve pages under increasing load while maintaining good page-level performance, right? You have more customers coming, you want them all to see the same fast pages.
And performance is basically the time it takes to load the page in a desktop browser or on mobile devices.
And we're going to talk to you about both of these things. Just in case you haven't been to another one of these, anything we happen to say that might, we're not going to announce anything, but if we happen to, we didn't mean to, and don't go buy the stock as a result of it, okay? So I want to talk to you about 6 things fairly quickly. If it's in the cloud, do I have to worry about scale? Salesforce, it is built to scale, and I'm going to show you a little bit about how that works. I want to talk about 4 different kinds of scale. I want to give you 2 scale case studies I think you'll find interesting in terms of the kinds of scale that we handle. I want to talk to you about guardrails. So one of the things we make sure is that how big can you scale and when do you need to worry about scale. And then I'll tell you just a tiny bit about Salesforce infrastructure. So it's in the cloud. Do I need to worry about scale? I don't know if you all seen XKCD, right? I'm so bad at estimating how many users will visit my site. No, don't panic. There's a simple trick for that. Take your most realistic estimate and double it. Okay, but hey, you moved your site to the cloud. You can stop worrying. Wait, did you forget to tell them about your Black Friday traffic is 100 times normal? Panic, right? This is the kind of thing. This is where scale comes in, right? Black Friday, Cyber Monday. You have an iPhone. You're running some special. So, do I have to worry about scale if it's in the cloud? The answer is yes. Salesforce is just want to give you the sort of the marketing side of this. Salesforce is built to scale. We scale both on the B2C side, right, business to consumer side, and the B2B side. So ability to send out emails, to create social posts, Einstein predictions, and then on the B2B side to handle opportunities, to handle your custom code, and so on. But let's talk about the 4 different kinds of scale. The first one is your site grows organically over time, right? You've got a small site today. You want to think about how can the vendor that I'm working with, can they scale as my traffic increases? The second one is you have daily and weekly peaks. So here's a case, actually, this is a real customer. On the top one, they've got daily, you can see on Monday they've got a peak, but during that day they've got 4 peaks. They actually run globally, and so they see little peaks during the day. And if you were to zoom on it, you'd see some very high peaks during the day. And the customer on the bottom is someone over the last month, and you can see on Mondays is their peak day, and that Monday is growing, right? That Monday is growing substantially. It's growing 50% just over that 1 month. The third one is you've got Black Friday or Cyber Monday, right? You're running along at normal, and then all of a sudden you hit a Black Friday event, right? So here's a case of a customer that hit 5x their normal on a Black Friday, and again on Cyber Monday they hit almost 5x. And then finally, the last one is you're big already, right? You're L'Oreal, you're Western Union, you're Box, you're Robert Half. Which vendor can I count on to scale with me already, right? Which vendor can handle the kinds of scale that I'm at today? So let's look at this 2 case studies. The first one's a global clothing manufacturer. You'd know the name. They've got 1 million users. This is a B2B. So this is a B2B. They're selling to their stores. They've got 40,000 dealers worldwide, 1 million users using the system. So each of those stores has multiple people using it, admins, buyers, and the like. They got 2.4 million articles of clothing in their catalog. 30,000 price lists, 12 million account price group combinations, 19 languages, 12 currencies. The typical order is between 100 and 400 items, right? You've got some shoe store. They want to make a big bulk purchase of soccer shoes because it's soccer season coming up. They might do 400. But in fact, this customer needs to be able to handle up to 750,000 orders in a single order. So when we, as a group, my group, looked at the scale requirements, they wanted to be able to handle 7,500 orders per day. So that's a sustained load of about 300 orders per hour, right? And they also wanted to be able to handle peaks of 5 times that, so 1,500 orders per hour. And what they did was they ran a load test with us. There were 2 different user flows, an admin flow and a buyer flow, right? The admin would come in, they'd do a search, they might get something that's already, put something in the cart. They might put a lot of items in the cart versus a buyer, might have a smaller set of carts. The result of that was that clothing manufacturer fit within our standard model. So I'll talk a little bit in a second about guardrails. We have this set of guardrails that we'll talk about, and this clothing manufacturer fit within those guardrails, and we were able to say, yes, we can handle this situation. Here's one that's a little bit different. So this is a slightly different data shape. So 1 million convenience and grocery stores globally. 2 million buyers, 70 countries, 1,000 SKUs. So the other one had 2.4 million articles of clothing. This one only has 1,000 articles in their catalog, right? So very different data shape. And that's one of the things we think about in performance is, what's the data shape? How many accounts do you have? How many opportunities? How many data items? How many, those kinds of things. This one had much smaller, right? So they tend to be ordering every day, every other day, 20 to 40 items per order, right? And they wanted to start with 1 million orders a year, ramping up to 50 million orders per year in the 5th year. So what that means is, when we went to look at a scale test, that means is they've got 10,000 orders per hour sustained. 365, 24/7, 365. They're a global company that they're going to be running these kinds of orders. We did another load test with 3 different user flows, and the results were it didn't fit within our normal capacity model, right? It was outside of that capacity model. But then what we did was we worked with capacity planning and to look at, can we support that and how would we support that? And we were able to do that. And so there's another process for these very, very large customers to go through. Guardrails. So I was telling you a little bit about guardrails here. In the community, there's 3 license types that we deal with. I don't know if you're familiar with these. Take a look at these afterwards. CC license is a high volume license. CC Plus would be more of a partner license or an internal license. It has sharing rules and the like. The CC doesn't. And the partner and the CC Plus are very similar. And so you can see that the 3 things that we look at are the number of users, number of logins, and then what's the page views per minute that we can handle. And they're very different depending on whether it's guest access or authenticated access, internal access, external access, and so on. And lastly, I just want to tell you a little bit about our infrastructure. So the way Salesforce works is we have 11 Salesforce data centers globally. We're moving to the cloud, so we have data centers running on Amazon, for example, in Sydney and in Canada. Part of that's for data residency, but it's also because we have a lot of customers in Australia that, going the hop all the way back and forth to Japan is a little far, and you want something that's a little closer. So that's it for scale. I'm going to let Nelson tell you about performance.
Thanks, Frank. So now let's talk about performance. And performance is the time it takes to load a page in a desktop browser or on mobile devices. And today we're going to go through some best practices, tips and tricks, and also tools you can use to optimize the performance for your Lightning communities. And in this session, we're going to focus on Lightning communities. Lightning communities provide a lot of options for you to build and customize your community for your end user experience and different use cases. You can start with an out-of-the-box template in Community Builder and customize and build your pages using Lightning components. You can also download components on App Exchange for your different features and also build your own components as well and customize your end user experience. And once you have your custom built community ready to go, one of the most important factors for success of your community is the performance. Because fast page load time means happy users, and slow page load time means unhappy users. And when we talk about performance best practices, it's important to note that it's basically both web development best practices and Lightning best practices. Because even though the development process is pretty different, you go into the builder and use Lightning components to customize your pages and use Salesforce technologies to build components. But at the end, it's still just a web page. So all of the web-based performance optimization skills still apply. It's not time to forget about them just yet. And to talk about performance best practices, one of the first things is a typical pattern is to use a lot of different third-party libraries to custom build your UI for your pages, and you use them for component-based development, for page element management, and also page routing and things like that. But actually, in Lightning Framework, we already provide a lot of those features, and the latest APIs from browsers actually support more advanced management of page elements already. So in a lot of cases, you don't actually need to use these third-party libraries. And using any third-party libraries on top of Lightning Framework will definitely add overhead to your page load time. So you might want to think carefully when you decide to use any third-party libraries and only use them when it's absolutely needed. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is image sizes. You might want to use some beautiful images for your sites to improve the user experience, but not everybody pays attention to the file sizes of your images. And the file sizes of the images have a huge impact to the performance of your site. And optimizing them oftentimes will get you a lot of benefits for performance. And let's take a look at these two images. One is optimized, and one is before it's optimized. The sizes are very different. Can you tell the difference between the two images? Oftentimes, the quality of the images after optimizing is pretty similar to before it's optimized. So you not want to forget about compressing and optimizing your images before your site goes live. Now let's take a look at this page on the right-hand side. A typical page on a web, the user the user cannot see all the contents on a page all at once at first. So the user will have to scroll down and see all the contents. And at first, the user will only see the top part of the page. So it's not necessary to always load the full page all at once up front. And in a community builder, you can enable the progressive rendering feature and configure parts of the page to be highest priority, high priority, or neutral priority, so that the most important content of your page can be loaded up front at first as fast as possible. And now coming back to Lightning Component Framework. In Lightning Components, one of the typical patterns is to go and use an action and go and fetch data from Salesforce and display the data information on the component in the UI. And components do this all the time. Imagine when the user goes back and forth to different pages and seeing the same components or same records or same pages. You don't want to repeatedly go to a Salesforce server to load this data, right? So to do that, to optimize that, you can use storable actions. And to use that, you just need to call setStorable before you call the action to send it to the server, so that the data, once fetched, will be cached on the client side and reused next time. And once you have your data cached on the client side, you might want to make sure that it's persistently cached on the client side on the browser, so that when the next time the user goes back to your site, the data and the components in the cache can still be leveraged by your site to improve the performance. And to enable that, you just need to make sure the persistent and secure browser caching is enabled in the session settings. And by default, it's already enabled for you. So once it's enabled, the data and the components will be cached in the browser's IndexedDB. And talking about fetching data, oftentimes it's fetching Salesforce record from Salesforce. And if you look at this example, there are a couple of components on the page that need the data from the same record. And imagine a lot of pages, they might use data from the same record. If you go to different pages, or components on the same page, they need data on the same record. It's very inefficient for them to each get the data from Salesforce and send a request and load the data on the back end. So for that, you can use Lightning Data Service. And Lightning Data Service manages and combines all these requests for data and send one request to the server and only load the data on the server from the database once. And on the client side, it's also cached and managed, so when next time any similar data that's needed will be reused from the Lightning Data Service. You can find out a lot more information for Lightning Data Service in our documentation. And let's talk about Content Delivery Network. Content Delivery Network, CDN, is a common technique to improve performance for websites. And Communities comes with a CDN service out of the box. So once you enable it, you get a lot more servers around the world to cache and serve your contents that are static for your sites. And to enable that, you just need to go to domain settings and enable this setting, and boom, you get more servers around the world and improve the site performance around the world. And let's talk about Debug Mode as well. So Debug Mode is a very useful feature for you to debug your site so that code is much more readable. However, it also adds overhead to your site performance. So be sure to turn it off before you do any performance testing to get more accurate results. And for tools, I want to talk about the Communities Page Optimizer. The Communities Page Optimizer is a tool that's provided by Community Cloud. It's a Chrome plugin. You can download it for free to get information on your site. So it does a lot of analysis on your site performance, provides recommendations for you to improve the site performance, and also gives you info on best practices and any issues that you found on the site. And in this session, you have learned what it means for scale in Salesforce communities, and also some performance best practices, tips and tricks, and tools. And there are a lot more information on the web through these links. You can go and take a look at and learn more. There are documentations and videos you can see and find more information. And with that, we thank you for joining us today, and we can take the next couple of minutes for questions. Thank you.